What's the dumbest idea you've had that turned out to be genius? I wrote an answer that was so bad they had to modify the textbook. Took a class on Greek history my senior year in college because my roommate said the professor was cool and the class was easy. Well, cool and easy are relative. My roommate was a classics major and knew Greek history inside and out. He was also a genius, so everything was easy. We had our first test that covered everything we learned so far, like chapters 1 through 8 in the textbook, or so I thought. It was also on the intro to the textbook, even though we never reviewed or discussed it in class. Apparently, the professor emphasized this in the class before the test, but I wasn't there. I stay up all night cramming for the test and feel great as I'm taking it the next day until I get to the last essay question, which was worth 25% of the grade, and said something like, according to the textbook intro, there were 5 reasons why scholars debate whether Crete was one of the locations in the Odyssey. Name one and explain it. Crap. This never came up in class, or in the rest of the textbook. So I rack my brain for something even remotely coherent, and remember an episode of Jeopardy about when Crete was supposedly discovered or something. So make up some nonsense about how, because the Odyssey was written around 800 BC, but Crete wasn't discovered until later, then it couldn't be Crete. Thought I might get points for writing more than 100 words, but fully expected to max out at a C. The following week, the professor is giving out the graded tests. He's making a bit of a show of it, commenting on how the class did overall, and calling out a few people that really whiffed in a kind of funny, not too harsh way, but still pretty embarrassing. And he's given out everyone's but mine. And then we have Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson didn't show up to the last class before the test and apparently didn't talk to anyone that did. How do I know this? Because his answer to the last essay wasn't even close to anything that was in the book. The whole class is looking at me. My roommate is trying to contain his laughter. A girl I was into was giving me a sad, pitiful, must suck to be you face. I'm beat red at this point. However, after rereading it a few times I was curious. So I handed it to the chair of the department and asked him to read it. He laughed because the answer was just well dumb, but then started to scratch his head. You see, while Mr. Davidson didn't do the assigned reading,